It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnett Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. It's really a pleasure to be back with you again this week. I was away and left you all in Freeman's capable hands, but I have to tell you I missed everybody and I'm really thrilled to be here.
It's great to have you back.
Even you, Spence, especially. It's great to see our producer and engineer, and Freeman.
It's
nice
really
to be
good.
home.
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
How was your trip?
It was fun. It was a really interesting experience just getting there and getting back. I had 4 legs. I was out at a retreat in St. Martin's in the Caribbean, and there were 4 legs to go and to return, 4 legs of air travel, and 3 out of the 4, they should have been seamless, right? Fly from LA to Miami, an hour layover, and connection, bang, same thing coming back. Well, 3 out of 4 legs had mechanical problems with the aircraft. So the first one sat at the gate for 2 hours and got to Miami, missed the connection, and had to stay over and go the next day and show up at 11 o'clock and get on a plane, and at 11 o'clock the plane doesn't work, so now you have to get off the plane, get on a new plane, and then the same thing coming back. Now, 3 out of 4 times. So I'm noticing the part of me that wants to make a story about it, feel victim, get blame. I'm aware of all of those, all the players, I have like an inner basketball squad, and they're all like suited up and on the bench. There's the one that wants to do blame. There's the one that wants to do self-pity. There's the one that wants to do anger. There's the one that wants to say, so they're all up there. They all have their numbers on, and they're all trying to get on into the game. Everybody's screaming and yelling, and there's me, and I'm like handing everyone oranges and saying, just chill out on the bench.
Who's the me? This is what I want to get to. Who's the me that hands out the oranges? Because it's such a great point, and I can completely relate to all these little me's, these threads of possibility that I could follow and sometimes do for some length of the ride. Thankfully, not for very long, because I don't know, there's some me that kind of knows that maybe I don't want to go all the way down that path. Who is or what is this me?
For me, the me is a moving target. The me who is responding.
Yeah, the chooser in this.
Is, the responding and meeting the needs of everybody on my bench, all the boys on my bench. That me is not the same me as was 6 months ago or 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, that me didn't even know there was a me. He was just also on the bench. So where I am right now, I don't know. It moves and it keeps changing. And part of who that is the discoverer of more me's that get added to the bench.
Right. So now, okay, so I'm going to throw some language out. I'm not saying any of the language is any good, but it's been called sometimes the observing ego. Sometimes we call it a sense of self, or you and I have kind of jokingly said sense of selves. The many me's.
It's the we. It's the many me's.
The many me's. Authentic self. We talk about that sometimes.
I like that one.
Do you really? It's interesting because
or truest self.
Well, because
which is a moving target. Because what's true today will be truer tomorrow. There's nothing untrue.
Yeah, of course. No. That's the part about authentic. It's like the many mini me's are authentic enough.
They're all real.
They're all real.
They just have, some of them have more and more. They're more and more empowered. The one that is watching these things is the most empowered that I am in touch with. There are more empowered me's, but I am not yet in touch with them. I sort of feel like a camera on the end of a crane, starting low, and I just keep moving up and up and up, and you have a wider and wider shot, and a higher and higher shot, and you're taking in more and more information, and you're seeing more and more players, all of whom are in my movie, and they're all me.
I love that analogy. And one I love that you just said, most empowered self that I'm in touch with. Like today, this is the most empowered self that I'm in touch with. This ability to see what I can see. Beyond that, there's something perhaps you can't see, and there's no self yet developed enough to be able to see beyond it. But it's interesting because part of what gets us there is crisis. part of what breaks open whatever the construct is. And some people have very tight constructs held very firmly around, belief systems that are, we've called them hand-me-down programming, whatever you want to call it, that align with a sort of collective belief structure, and it's really tightly held, and that comes apart with a divorce and job loss and whatever and so forth and so on. After enough of these sort of coming aparts, right? The self grows. The empowered self can see more and more of these bits and fragments and include them versus identify. Relate to them versus identify. We've talked so much about this, but it really is at the point. There are these moments, and I know you and I have talked about this offline, where there's kind of two levels of crisis. There's a crisis where the world as I've organized it is in a fairly familiar pattern of crisis. It's very familiar. We go, oh yeah, this pattern of crisis, we're doing this again. And then there are these points where the crisis is a spiritual crisis, a more...
Or a physical crisis.
Yeah.
Well, there's all kinds of crises.
Yeah. No, but I mean the physical... So let's talk about this, because the physical crisis, even the crisis... the mini crises, what's the plural of crisis? Crisis? The crises within the construct, the pattern crisis, the reoccurring crisis. Enough of those can tip into a sort of moment where it's a soul thing, where there's a
crisis of soul. I mean, there are, again, we pull far enough back, and all crises are spiritual crises.
That's what I'm saying.
However, I rob myself of being able to chunk it down to bite-sized pieces that I can handle. Everybody on my bench is me.
Yes.
But when I just say they're all me, then I'm not intimate with the various expressions of me. So when I allow the crises, when I differentiate them before I integrate them, if I just go to making them all one thing, I don't have a chance to get real intimate with it. If I chunk them down and separate them out first, and then I can put them together. So you said this language. I made a note where things appear to be coming apart in crises, and often I have immediately gone knee-jerk into responding to that by going to my bench and dealing and responding and respecting and caring for the needs and what is being triggered on the various players on my bench. And in so doing, I am kind of integrate. I meet their needs, and then I can be in the unknown. And as an adult, as the most aware, developed of that crew, I can respond to what comes up.
I like the word adult too.
That's sort of the coming apart solution. And for a very long time, that was my default strategy for dealing with crisis. And but as you said that, I realized, well, that's the coming apart crisis. But what about when it flips to a coming together crisis?
Yeah.
So what about? Well, I'll be specific. When I was on this airline set of challenges, I heard from the parts of me on the bench, and I also heard from the part of me that I thought was the observer, saying, well, let's deal with it this way. And then I realized, well, we always deal with it this way. So suddenly I had just kind of taken a little quantum leap back. What used to be the observer was now suddenly being observed.
Yeah, that's
so
fantastic.
I said, wait, this is your... I have friends that used to do things like Est and Landmark, and they have a language for this kind of thing called... Racket. So I suddenly saw the racket of what 2 seconds ago was my highest observer. I suddenly saw he had a racket. I had just quantum pulled my crane back a bit, and now what 2 minutes ago was my highest self was now another guy on the bench.
Yeah.
So his racket is to go to the same place all the time. What I'm bringing this up because I thought, well, I have a chance here to be in the total mystery of something without trying to figure it out, but realizing that I had a new member on my bench. I had a new fragment that only moments ago was my highest self.
That's fantastic.
And
that is fantastic.
And so his process, his means of relating to everything is now added to everybody all the way down to the 4-year-old whose means, or the 2-year-old whose means of everything was, or the 1-year-old was throwing his food off the table.
That's right.
So this one was a little more empowered, but ultimately they're all on the bench.
Right,
so I'm watching this and I realized, well, it's not a very dramatic crisis. Thank God, thank Goddess, thank all that is. It's not a dramatic crisis, but it's a real opportunity for me now to add to my repertoire of growth, not simply crises of coming apart, of being overwhelmed by physical challenges of getting someplace, but or crises of too much incoming data, more than I can handle at any moment. But now I had an opportunity to say, well, this is a spiritual crisis. This is an opportunity for me to experience a lot of overload, but sitting in it with the awareness that it's an opportunity for me to love and to grow and to add capacity.
Right, I love it. There's a couple things about this. We've spoken on this show about something becoming real, and then more real, and then more real. All sort of hearkening back to this concept of authentic self. That there's a part of us that represents our potential, and that we're always sort of growing into more and more potential, and the world becomes more and more real and real and real. But the way that we work with that is by moving to the edge. And the edge, of course, is always mystery. It's how I relate to things in terms of
It's mystery inside of what's logical to us. When we cross the line, as we do every night in dreams, but we can also do it in the waking state more and more, it is no longer logical.
Nope.
When it's beyond the other side of the boundary of logic, it's no longer mystery, it's now mysticism.
Well, and there's a felt experience of that, at least for me, where there's a through line. I don't have words for this. This is maybe the first time I've ever tried to describe it. Do you remember I came to you and I had, I don't even know language for this, a win where I had some coaching clients who were tricky, tough. And at first it seemed like there's no possible, I didn't know if I could serve them. I didn't know if I could really help them through because the construct, the way they held their world felt so tight. And I had a moment where it was all sort of, I don't know if the word is working, but it was coming in a way where I was like, wow. And I had originally held that as a thread of possibility when I took on the clients. And I knew there was something possible, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. And there were so many moments along the way where I really didn't know if we were going to tip into a more authentic, if the construct was going to come apart, and if they were going to have more of a sense of authenticity and vulnerability and openness and a greater, richer experience, which I held the vision of possible for them. But it was a lot of work. And what was interesting is, in that moment, there was an essential me, an essential skill set, all of which came into play for the moment in time that I felt like, wow, they're getting it. Wow, it actually worked. Unbelievable. A part of me doesn't even believe, how did that happen? It's a complete and total miracle. And I don't even want to take credit for it because I don't know what part of me came in with enough wisdom and enough guidance and enough whatever that we were able to move through, whatever we were able to move through. And they're having these amazing breakthroughs. And it's such a gift. So that all I want to say is there's something there. And again, we've used language, observing ego, sense of self or selves, authentic self, but it extends beyond. There's a possibility in the essential qualities that I've touched at various moments in my life. I know they're there. Talent, for example. After a great performance, I don't know how I did that. Like, what part of me got activated? There was enough courage to get in the game. And there was enough, sense that I would probably find my way through it, but it was a complete and total trust. And the mystery part was where I was splashing around and out popped this thing that I knew, some part of me knew was possible. I've touched it enough times in my life, but it would actually manifest in an outcome? Whew, who knew that was going to happen? I can't see that, Spence.
No, neither of us can see what that time. You could just say what the time is.
Oh, meaning I get it. So we should probably
we need to take
a break.
We're going to come right back. And when we come back, I want to pick up on this idea of what I hear in it is has something to do with the relationship between pure passion and the developing the development of talent.
I love that. We're going to take a quick
break. We'll be right back.
Stay with us here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.